All right, welcome into The Route, our Husker podcast edition, our weekly Husker podcast edition. We're not going to start off with music today because, it's just kind of sad. Two Sundays in a row in which we have recorded this podcast, actually not 2 Sundays in a row, but 2 Sundays of the 3 games that Nebraska has had this season. And, that first week we started it off jokingly because Nebraska supposedly, lost in a Hail Mary. We still don't even know if that actually happened or not, but we move on. And then Nebraska storms back this week after getting a win last week, and then they lose. So it's almost too depressing to try and joke around about it because Nebraska has now had 2 heartbreaking losses after fighting back and looking like they would have the game, and then they didn't. So here we stand. Ryan Swanigan with you, joined as always by Brent Bonfleur, and we will get this in.
Wow, I feel good.
It's time now to bring in the Nebraska insider of all Nebraska insiders, the insider known as Devon Cleach.
Oh, I'm busting a move 24/7, guys. Pop, lock, and dropping. I don't need any light in my life.
He feels pretty good after coming back from Miami, don't you, Devon?
I feel good, yeah. Feeling good.
A little more tan.
I don't know if I'm a little more tan.
Yeah, I don't think so either. He looks the same.
It'll smell like Cuban cigar smoke
None
in
of
your
that.
clothes.
None of that. I don't smell like that. But there's probably
Cocaine?
No cocaine either. But I probably smell like a freaking sweat sock after that game.
Oh,
It
man.
is so muggy out there. Oh my
Boy, at
goodness.
one point I saw they did a close up on Jordan Westerkamp, and his jersey was just see through.
I'm pretty sure my white polo was see-through.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Looked like probably a wet t-shirt contest out there, to be honest. Honestly.
Oh, goodness. Well, Devon saw the game from the camera viewing perspective up front and close to the game. We, Brent and I, did not. And
saw it from my living room.
we watched it on TV.
You guys technically saw it from the camera viewing.
Well,
angle,
true, yeah, but we weren't actually there where you could see everything. We could only see what was being shown on TV. So I actually had the radio on, was listening to that, watching the game on my computer, and oh man, the delay was terrible.
Oh yeah.
2 plays off.
Oh,
the
really?
radio had happened. 2 plays later, it happens on my computer, and that's like almost 2 minutes right there.
Yeah.
So it was terrible, but I still lived anyway. Even though many Husker fans probably did not, after a series of events, and I think I even tweeted it out, saying Nebraska went from quitting to interested to hoping to praying to exploding out of pure excitement and shock and, oh my gosh, I can't believe this just happened, to a nervous wreck beginning overtime to crying because they lost. The 6 o'clock hour last night, Saturday night, was a perfect roller coaster of emotions for Husker
that
fans.
pretty much sums them all up. I think all of those things were experienced among the various people in my living room.
Yeah. Nebraska was down at one point 20...
3 points?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm looking 20-3 going into halftime. It then became 30-10. And then all of a sudden, touchdown Alonzo Moore. Touchdown Brandon Riley. Touchdown Stanley Morgan Jr. Jordan Westerkamp 2-point conversion. And 33 seconds left. And Nebraska has scored 23 points. And the game is tied. Now, before we get into overtime, let's just stop right there. First of all, we won't include regulation. Let's just talk overtime. We'll talk about regulation. How about Tommy Armstrong Jr. and the performance that he had I guess really in the entire game too, if you want to include overtime, but in those first 4 quarters, that kid would not quit. And neither would Stanley Morgan Jr., too, by the way. What a performance by that guy.
Yeah.
Oh, my. What a game from him, from Armstrong. Poor Jordan Westerkamp. He did great, too. He deserves to be thrown into that category.
Brandon Riley, too. That guy took some serious hits.
He did.
I thought he was going to have a concussion for sure.
I don't know how he doesn't have something broken with him, unless you know something we don't, Devin.
No, he's good. He walked off the field after that, especially that one targeting penalty.
Yeah,
the targeting penalty.
That was brutal.
And then he took a shot to the back and around the kidneys
And he still
on that
held onto
touchdown
the
catch.
That's the amazing thing. He held onto the ball.
I know.
And he fell into the end zone, too, with it. Just really amazing. Just truly amazing. Those 3 receivers, Westerkamp, Riley, Stanley Morgan Jr., and Tommy Armstrong, who couldn't get a receiver to catch a ball to save his life in the first
4 quarters.
Well, I'd say 2.5, maybe the first 3 quarters of that game.
Yeah.
And
even more than that, into the fourth. Yeah.
Kept on fighting. Just amazing. 11 carries for Armstrong, 49 yards on the ground. Just unbelievable.
Yeah, he made some good plays with his legs.
Yeah, and most of those weren't designed plays. He was getting bombarded in the pocket, and he had to get out, and he made good plays with his feet. You can't fault the kid, Mike Riley kind of stuck to his guns, said he wasn't going to run the ball, and he ran it, I think, 2 or 3 times actually designed for him to run the ball. Other than that, he was just scrambling out of the pocket the entire night.
Just absolutely amazing for Tommy Armstrong. Terrell Newby, 14 carries, 82 yards. Not a good day for the rushing game. 153 in total. Passing department was dead until the 4th quarter. In total, 309 yards passing for Tommy Armstrong in Nebraska. 4 touchdowns, 2 sacks, 3 interceptions, 21 of 45. And again, the main three receivers: Westerkamp, Riley, Stanley Morgan Jr., 95 yards, 83 yards, 78 yards, all respectively. Each one of them had a touchdown. Alonzo Moore, 1 catch, 10 yards. It was a touchdown. That was the only time that we heard from him in that game, but I'm not really complaining after all that. Sam Foltz, rough game back. Devin, I don't know about you. He looked like he was really trying to fight through that injury, and that might have affected some of his punts. At least that's from what I saw. I don't know what you saw, what you think about that, but I think it was a rough game back from Sam Foltz. I think because I don't think he was fully recovered from that injury.
For the most part, yeah. I think it was a little rough. His plant foot, he said he was okay, and I'm assuming they wouldn't have let him go and play if he wasn't okay, but I'm sure there's something that's still lingering a little bit, but for the most part, I think he'll be fine the rest of the season. Just let time heal, because it's not going to get any better if he's on that bad boy 24/7. He's just got to let it heal.
It seemed like it was a mental thing, like he was shaken up still, because it was just uncharacteristic. I mean, we've never seen Sam Foltz punt as bad as he did in that first half, especially. And he got it back on track, though, and he was booming them then. Yeah. And that was a big part of their comeback, which just shows how vital he is. But yeah, to me, it just looked like it was a mental thing, like he was just kicking too soon or something, even though he had time. Because it looked like, he's going to get hit. And for a punter, they don't get hit very often. And so when you get injured, it probably does linger a little bit longer than like a running back or a receiver or someone who's getting, who has contact every play. But
defensively, we'll go over this real fast. Nate Gary, 9 tackles.
Yeah.
Freedom Akamolandu, man.
Yeah.
What a game. 6 tackles, 5 of them solo tackles. A sack. Dedrick Young, 5 tackles, 3 of them solo. Malik Collins had 4. All of them were solo tackles.
And 1 body slam.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Where he picked that running back up with 1 arm.
He tried to hurdle over someone's on the ground, and Malik's just not come back down.
Yeah.
Goes into the ground.
Just brilliant.
That was insane.
This defense, though, again, in the secondary, got torched
Daniel Davey
by Brad Kaya. Byerson Cockrell in addition to Daniel Davey. I don't know exactly how Jonathan Rose did on the other side. Malik Collins had an interception. Josh Kalu had an interception. But man, oh man, Brad Kaya, 25-42, 379 yards, passing a touchdown, 2 touchdowns, a sack, and a pick. Man, did he just pick apart Nebraska's secondary in single coverage, mind you.
I honestly thought that his numbers were better than that because that's basically similar to Tommy's.
Right.
Just Tommy had 2 more picks than he did.
And
about 70 more yards.
A couple of penalties that took back some big plays, which we'll get to in a moment.
For both teams.
Yeah,
exactly. We'll get to all that in a moment.
Yeah, but Brad Kaya, he's probably going to be a first-round draft pick when he comes out.
Easy.
Yeah,
I didn't expect
he's
it out
the
of him.
real deal.
I didn't expect it. I didn't expect it out of Miami at all.
Not that good.
And I know we had discussed this last Sunday, and we said, what weapons are there for Miami other than one wide receiver and a running back?
Those questions are answered.
Exactly. Yeah. It doesn't matter if you've got a great quarterback. And granted, we should know this and kind of, slap in my face for not, realizing, hey, if you got a good quarterback, who cares what weapons you have? They're going to get it done.
Yeah.
You still got to have guys to be able to catch the ball. And they did.
Miami has talent. The thing is, you didn't think that they were this ready. You think a year or 2 from now, Miami would be good.
Yeah.
But, they looked real good.
They took on a scrap team at Florida Atlantic before coming into this game, and they looked like they were taking on another subpar team
in the first
in Nebraska
3 quarters. Boy, especially that first quarter was just brutal.
Unbelievable. Just going down the field, 7-play drive touchdown, 4-play drive touchdown, just kicking in the teeth of Nebraska, knocking down the door and saying, here, try and keep up with this. And Nebraska's secondary couldn't. And again, it was the single coverage that Brad Kaya just picked apart all day. And who was involved with it? Daniel Davey. Poor kid, just trying to stick with, mainly it was Waters Jr., I think he was trying to hang with.
Well, Miami
as
a team has a lot more speed than Nebraska.
Oh, yeah.
Especially offense versus defense. Yeah, and that's just going to be the case when you play teams that have a large percentage of their players from the South, Florida and Georgia. Those guys, they're just faster.
Herb Waters Jr. 4 receptions, 82 yards.
Yeah.
Rashawn Scott, 9 receptions, 151 yards.
Yeah.
Imagine if somebody would have shut him down, how big of a game changer that could have been for Nebraska.
I don't know who. Answer. I don't know. Nate Gary didn't play well.
I know, and I don't know if that was because he had that issue in the first quarter or the second quarter whenever he got hurt.
But Nate Gary, he's one guy that he just straight dominates whoever he's going up against, and he couldn't do that.
Just wasn't there yesterday.
Yeah, no.
I don't remember who was covering Rashawn Scott half the time there, Devin. I don't know if you remember. But whoever it was, whether it was Jonathan Rose or Daniel Davey, Byerson Cockrell, Josh Kalu, whoever, it did not turn out to be a performance to remember. It turned out to be something to remember in how you don't cover a receiver like Rashawn Scott.
They had a lot of situations where their wide receivers were being defended by linebackers. So there's an extreme difference in speed and athletic ability between linebackers and wide receivers.
Right.
And so I think that's why Nebraska got torched, because I saw a lot during the game where Dedrick Young, a young linebacker, was chasing wide receivers because they were just so much faster than he was. Yeah. And that's just getting experience, getting in the weight room, getting better. And I think, after a few more games under his belt, getting, back into the weight room, I'm sure jet lag always plays a part in that. It's terrible. The time difference doesn't help at all. There's a bunch of factors that go in it, but you can't make excuses for Nebraska. The defense played just bad. And they did this the last 2 weeks, besides South Alabama. There's something that needs to be done. I don't know if it's play calling or putting new people in the right situations, but if Daniel Davey is your best corner on that side of the football, then you either don't have someone that is good enough to play yet, or
somebody's not stepping up and doing their job.
Someone's not stepping up and doing their job. It's just, that's what it comes down to. And Nebraska's defense is going to be in trouble because they're going to play a lot better offenses than Miami.
Mm-hmm.
And I think
we'll get to that in a moment.
Yeah, Michigan State.
Some teams that we think are that good offensively are not, and other teams that we thought are not as good offensively actually are. We'll get to that in a moment.
But I think that when you say that, it comes down to the moment that you play them. Mm-hmm. They might not have been playing good this week. Like you're saying, Michigan State.
I'm thinking about Michigan State.
They didn't play that great against Air Force, I didn't think. But
same with Wisconsin against Troy. We'll get to that in a moment,
when they come to play Nebraska, they're going to be, this is Nebraska. This isn't Troy. This isn't scrubby
Florida,
other
Atlantic.
Schools, Air Force. I mean, Air Force isn't bad, but it's a whole nother mindset when you play a team like Nebraska or Nebraska plays Michigan State. Mm-hmm. So you're going to get a way different game out of them than you would expect them to play against Air
their
Force.
Offense is going to be just fine.
Yeah, exactly. Same for Nebraska's offense. I think that's going to be just fine as well.
Yeah, running game wasn't there really again.
Fourth quarter. This is what I want to get to. I'm just, again, we had seen for the entire game Nebraska fighting and then, 2 steps forward, 10 steps back. Jordan Westerkamp had to be absolutely enamored with that offensive line and those dumb penalties that took back like a 40-yard gain and another 25-yard gain. That's 2 huge plays. One of them was a touchdown somewhere and called back because a guy named Alex Lewis decides to not learn from BYU and make some dumb penalties again, which we'll get to that when we cover overtime in a moment.
Yeah.
But it's like, I thought Nebraska had learned from the BYU game. You can't put up 12 penalties and expect to win. And once again, Nebraska against Miami goes down there into Sun Life Stadium and puts up 12 more penalties, and they lose in overtime.
Yeah, like 126
after
yards
another
worth.
comeback. You can't do that. If you do, something is going extremely wrong for the other team because you don't put up 12 penalties and win a football game unless you're Miami and you quit in the fourth quarter and your 2 best defenders in the secondary decide to make some boneheaded targeting plays and get ejected from the game. And even then, Nebraska still couldn't do it because of overtime.
Miami tried to lose that game.
They did.
I mean, they were it's throwing it at Nebraska.
They just didn't care anymore in that fourth quarter. And Tommy Armstrong picked up on that, and he took advantage of that all the way.
It's funny because at the beginning of the game, Miami puts up on their big board keys to the game. The very last key to the game was play a full 60 minutes.
Oh, that's funny.
They played 30.
60 minutes.
They played 30, 35.
Exactly.
3/4 of that 60 minutes they did.
Well, you need to. That's what it comes down to. Nebraska almost did it to Michigan State last year.
Very reminiscent of that game.
Because Nebraska didn't really show up for 3 quarters in that game. And then they show up in the fourth quarter and they almost win that. Don't show up for basically 3 quarters and they almost win that game. And, I mean, any team Nebraska plays, it's the same thing for Nebraska. Nebraska needs to learn to play a full 60 minutes. They cannot play 15 minutes.
There's funny because that sounds like a Bo Pelini problem right there, yet we don't have Bo Pelini as
there's no way
you can coach.
There's no way you can win a game playing 15 minutes.
Right.
I mean, there's going to be teams that are a lot more talented than you that you're going to play. That defensive line was unreal for Miami. They were good. They were big. They took advantage of a young offensive line that hasn't played that great in the last 3 weeks. They played South Alabama, but they aren't as talented as the last 2 teams Nebraska's played other than themselves. I mean, Nebraska is going to be in trouble if they don't find a secondary or someone that can call plays to help that secondary out. And if our offensive line does not get into shape because there needs to be some more chemistry building there. And I do like that Mike Cavanaugh keeps those guys together. He lets them play, lets them work through their problems. And in the second half, they did play pretty well.
Yeah.
And I told someone this last night on the plane ride home that I'm like, for halftime speeches, I give it an A+, because in the BYU game and in this Miami game, we've come out in the second half and played really good football.
Yes, absolutely.
And that's something Nebraska hasn't really had in a long time. Usually in the Bo Pelini era, we would come out at halftime and we would just crap the bed.
Well, not
we would.
all
we would
the
give
time.
up. We would give up.
Ohio State, Wisconsin.
But that was earlier when we were first
the
in
latter
Big Ten.
half. Yes,
It's just it was bad.
Wisconsin last year. Yes,
We just would give up, and especially in those bigger games, we lost Wisconsin.
but then you could throw Michigan State in there too. That was a comeback.
Yeah, but I don't know. It just most of the time you feel that when Nebraska's down big, UCLA is another one.
Nebraska was up,
Nebraska was up in the first half,
and they blew the second half. Yeah,
it's just we give up, and I think Mike Riley brings a mentality that you cannot give up, and I don't know how he makes those guys understand that. I don't know what he does differently than Bo did.
Right.
But in the first 3 weeks of the season, there's promise there. We're 1-2, but if those two were a Bo Pelini game, we would probably have lost by more than.
yes.
I don't know what the first game was, 4 points and then 3 points this time.
Right.
You would have lost by a lot more than that. And I
6
guess
in the first game.
Those are still two really good teams that Nebraska played.
Exactly.
Right?
BYU is
not
turning out to be something special.
They may have lost last night to UCLA,
That's only by one.
but they lost by 1 and they could have won that game. And I just think Nebraska, they're headed in the right direction. You know, I was the first one to say that I think Nebraska wins 9 games this season. It's still possible. It's very possible. Because Big Ten play is completely different than playing in non-conference.
And it's about mentality, and Nebraska's already building that mental mindset right now after these 2 huge non-conference games in BYU and Miami. They're building for that Big Ten slate.
Yeah, and right now, you got teams to worry about in your division, but you can't, look past Southern Miss, of course. But you got to beat Northwestern, who's come out of nowhere.
Yeah.
You got to beat Wisconsin, who's iffy, and that's what we thought they'd be this year. They're iffy.
Yeah,
Nobody
they're still
knows,
good.
and nobody knows what's going on up there in Madison after you beat Troy by 28. I think an ESPN headline read, Wisconsin easily handles Troy, and it was like, easily handles?
They still won by 4 touchdowns.
You score a touchdown in each quarter. I think if Nebraska played Troy, the final score would have been like, I don't know, 53-10, 53-7. I think Nebraska could have put up more points against Troy than Wisconsin did.
Yeah.
Heck, Nebraska put up way more points against South Alabama than Wisconsin against Troy. So I don't know what's going on in Madison, to be honest. I really don't understand.
At the same time, Ohio
it either.
State survived Northern Illinois.
Yeah, that's
By a touchdown. Yeah.
Yeah, you can't always look at these games and say, well, they should have beat them by 50 points because they can. Sure, they can.
It's just something about week 3 for Ohio State. They lost to Virginia Tech in week 3 last year. They almost lose to Northern Illinois. Both of these games at home, mind you. I mean, something weird about Ohio State in that third week.
All the best teams, they have down weeks.
Yeah.
And it's just the good ones, they win and then they keep going. And the bad ones sometimes lose or they keep having bad games. So Ohio State's going to be just fine.
Yeah. Same for Michigan State, even though they just had a weird offensive game.
Well,
and they also have some secondary problems, too. 2 injuries of 2 key corners. That could be a problem for them.
They probably won't win too many games, but they're
always a very good team every year.
They're in such good shape.
Yeah.
That they are a team that plays for 60 minutes.
Every single year.
Yeah.
Air Force fights every single year, every single game.
Because, talk about not giving up. Those guys can't give up. When they're in the military and you're actually in combat for your life, you can't just give up because
Flying
it's been 45 minutes.
In
and
a plane 30,000 feet above ground.
Right. Yeah, you can't just give up there. So, I mean, that's why they hung around with Michigan State. And honestly, I watched that game. They probably should have won that game.
I think so, too.
They turned it over. They shot themselves in the foot. They could have won that game.
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
Getting back, but I want to get back to just quickly here with Nebraska. That's 2 plays, basically, for Nebraska in which they could have won both. They could be 3-0 right now. That Hail Mary doesn't happen. And I don't know, pick your play in the Miami game that goes Nebraska's way.
Yeah.
Probably that penalty, that catch that Westerkamp had that was called back because of a penalty. You're probably looking at Nebraska being 3-0 right now. But Miami had multiple plays. The BYU game had 1 still.
Yeah.
And if those 2 total plays from one of those games each goes a different way. That's what it is.
Yeah. Well, they didn't, though.
Yeah, exactly. Nebraska sits at 1-2 because after the storming of the Palace that Nebraska did in the fourth quarter and tying up the game, 2 successful 2-point conversions made, by the way.
That's really impressive.
Ethan Carter, though, on the first one with that touchdown, the first touchdown of that fourth quarter. And then the last touchdown of that fourth quarter, Jordan Westerkamp completing the 2-point conversion. All of a sudden, this game is tied, and everything else that happened in the game means nothing. But those 2, I go to this, 2 key ejections and that series of penalties against Miami that backed them up backed them up.
Took about 30 seconds off the clock.
And backed them up, yes.
With like 5 penalties, yeah.
Exactly. And the flag against Al Golden, the false start, another penalty in there. All of this before a punt, and it just kept pushing Miami back and back and back and back. Now, shouldn't have the clock been reset, though, after those penalties?
No. Well, I mean...
That's what I was thinking about.
Well, they punted the one time.
Right.
And it was a running into the kicker penalty, which took... Because the play goes on. It allows to go on. But then he got the...
But yeah, the unsportsmanlike conduct.
The clock will stay what it stopped at the end of the play.
Right.
They'll just bring it back, the ball back. Yeah. And then you end up getting that penalty. It takes you back. I think it was... They would have been 4th and 1 at the time after that running into the kicker. But then he got that unsportsmanlike conduct. Moved him back 15 yards.
And then a false start. And then wasn't there another penalty in there? Or maybe I think it finally...
There's 3 or 4.
It was a very long time for that punt to happen. But basically, that was basically the beginning of Miami officially crumbling in that quarter. And... Yeah. All of a sudden, boom, here comes the Nebraska comeback. You get another ejection, or you get the ejection penalty. Or no, it was earlier, I think earlier in that fourth quarter, the first ejection on the targeting penalty, and then later the second ejection on the targeting penalty. And all of a sudden, here's Nebraska's train, the momentum train, just steaming right through the station as it goes by and ties up the game. And then we go into overtime. And the first play of overtime, I think Tommy Armstrong, who had been so great in that entire game and was trying to get Nebraska a little bit more than he should have, because that's what Tommy Armstrong does. He wants more. He's going to fight for more. And what resulted was the interception. And then all of a sudden, we go from the spectacular emotional high and in a matter of seconds goes straight down the hill, and now we give Miami the ball. And in the midst of that play, one of the captains for Nebraska, after the defender was out of bounds, after the interception, here, let me bump you and flip you on your rear. Alex Lewis with another penalty against him. I don't know how many he had in that game, Devin. I don't know if you remember, but it was once again... too many. 25 penalties in this game, by the way. So both sides were just sloppy, absolutely terrible.
Bad.
Second time, though, that Nebraska's had 12 penalties in one game this season, and we're only in week 3.
That hasn't changed.
And then the field goal, which, oh boy, that was a little bit too close for comfort. If you're a Miami fan, to see that thing almost get shanked. But it still went through. Miami wins. They celebrate for whatever reason. We're going to get to that in our regular podcast, Brent and I. But it was just like, is that's how it's supposed to happen for Nebraska? They come back twice this season and they lose after all that. And it's like the overtime was just like, how could that interception happen for Tommy Armstrong, who battled his way through the entire game to bring that team back, and they lose?
The way they did do the overtime in my end zone that I was filming in, and when I was filming the play, I saw Tommy, and I know where he was going with it. He was going to the back of the end zone, where he's wide open.
Yeah, exactly.
The thing was,
who was wide open?
I think it was Westerkamp, wasn't it?
It was either Westerkamp or it was Riley.
Yeah,
I want to say it was Riley though.
Okay, yeah.
And Tommy, I don't think he's that great of a passer on the run, and he was kind of scrambling out.
Not nearly as good. Yeah,
he could have made that pass. He just underthrew it a little bit.
Right.
And I don't think he really saw. I think it's Corn Elder is the guy's name.
Yeah.
That picked it off. Mm-hmm. I don't think he saw him stepping back, and that guy just happened to snag the pass. You know, granted, the wide receiver didn't really make an attempt to go after it because you could see that thing was short. And I feel bad for Tommy. I really do. Because
it was a good decision. It was just a bad throw.
And he really wants Nebraska to do well. He really wants to get this team back to performing the way that fans expect them to perform. And sometimes I think he tries a little too hard. He could have just as easily ran and got 5 yards out of that play, and that overtime wouldn't have been over. Or their offensive series wouldn't have been over. And
it was only first down. Only first
very
down.
first play, and it
again trying for too much on the first try.
It's just bad decisions all around on that first play.
Because he didn't call that play.
Yeah, and Alex was just... I feel bad for the kid because his dad... I believe his dad played here.
Yeah.
You know,
Bill Lewis.
He wanted... He likes Nebraska. He loves Nebraska.
He fights for this team.
He does. And, you know, everyone targets him because of last year, all of his penalties. You know, they're going to look out for him. They're going to see, is he committing those penalties still? He wants to win just as bad as anyone else. You know, and sometimes when you're in those situations, you got so many things going through your mind, and I think his frustrations got to him. He made a dumb play, and I'm sure the coaches let him know that.
Oh, yeah.
Because I think he did it right in front of Coach Kavanaugh, who's his offensive line coach. And I'm sure Cav had some choice words for him.
Oh, yeah.
And
rightfully so.
Yeah. I agree. And, you know, we haven't really hit this point yet, but of course, him making his statement on Twitter this morning.
Uh-huh.
No,
on Facebook, actually, yeah.
Or Facebook, yeah. And he said that, I believe his comment was he's tired of playing. He's done playing for Nebraska.
You want me? I'll read it off here. I'm done playing for the state of Nebraska. His Facebook post reads, "You want to blame me for the loss? That's fine. But I have done everything right to prove I belong, and yet I'm not a Husker." I'm reading it verbatim here. "So you want to see what Alex Lewis is about, then sit back and criticize, because I'm going to prove myself and my family that I am better than these fair-weather fans themselves," in parentheses, psych, Huskers. "You have let loose a storm that the Huskers haven't seen since '95, and you will kiss my feet when I'm done with you. So screw everyone who ever doubts me, a.k.a. the whole state of Nebraska, who said I was not Nebraska worthy since my arrest." And
that statement, I'm sure he's going to get a stern talking to about that statement that he posted. Because, you know, they always get talked to about posting stuff on social media and all that stuff. But I think he's right, honestly. You know, there's fans here in Nebraska, extremely fair weather, and they'll point out your faults. They'll be the first ones to do it. And social media has made that so easy for them to do that. Mm-hmm. And I feel bad, not just for him, but for all the players that have to sit there and watch all that stuff online and see that people are calling them out on Twitter. And they can do that because they can hide behind Twitter. They can hide behind social media. Mm-hmm. And, I just think that, people, they have to go through enough. Yeah, people say they got it easy, which most of them do have it easy. Like you can't complain about that. They do have it pretty easy. But then again, they do have it tougher than most people. They go to school. They have to play at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. They have to keep their grades up. They don't get to play if they don't have their grades up.
And can I say they have to play for a fan base that is still stuck in the past.
20 years ago.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, and I've heard a lot of people say that, we got to quit living in 1994 and 95 and 97.
And that's the truth. It's the pure truth.
Back then I was, 94, I was a year old. 95 is 2. I don't remember those things as well. I remember 2001. Nebraska played Miami. That's the last time I remember.
Yeah, I do too.
And it's just, I feel bad for these kids. They have to go through a lot. They have to deal with all that. They deal with these fans, especially in Nebraska. It's not easy playing Nebraska. You could go play at Jacksonville State, and it's pretty easy. Right. But you play at Nebraska, you're going to have to – he's got to learn to be able to handle the critiques from the fans because he knows he's going to get it.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel bad for the kid, but he's made mistakes. In a sense, he does deserve to be critiqued. Fans want to win, but – on the other side of it, he does have to deal with a lot. So does every other player.
But you have to understand why there are more expectations from him than, say, my guy Dylan Utter, who's a starting lineman, or our boy PT Paul Thurston. He's a captain of the team. He's one of 6 captains on this team. Mm-hmm. You have to live up to the expectations. Mm-hmm. Jameis Winston, I don't believe, correct me if I'm wrong.
I don't think he was a captain.
I don't think he was ever a captain on that team
would vote for him to be a captain.
He couldn't handle that. He was a leader on the field. You have to be a leader on and off the field. And sometimes Winston wasn't a leader on the field. A captain has to be a leader at all times, on and off the field. Alex Lewis, off the field, probably fine, I would think. I haven't heard anything, but on the field, too, that's where you're in the spotlight. You have to be a captain. You can't be pushing Corn Elder on his rear after the play is over. Right. That's not what a captain does.
You got to be, for him, not only just being a captain, but being a captain for that offensive line. He's the oldest one. He has the most experience.
Right. Exactly.
And people are looking at him like, wow, he's making all these mistakes. And these kids are thinking, well, are we going to get in trouble if we make a mistake? Because he's a senior, all this stuff. He's got to set an example for that offensive line. He's got to be able to lead those guys. He's got to bring those guys together, and so they can play Cornhusker football, form that pipeline that Nebraska's used to having on the front, which they haven't had in a long, long time.
Yeah. You can't be making these penalties, not just pushing Corn Elder on his rear after an interception, but you can't be doing this hands to the face stuff that pulls back a 40-yard Jordan Westerkamp reception.
Here's my thing, and listen, what you guys said, and I agree. He at the end of the day, he's just a player. So we all got to remember, he's just playing football out of college. Okay. That said, I'm not gonna. I don't look at Tommy Armstrong's interception as
that doesn't define the game for him.
Right. Here's the difference between something like that and what Alex Lewis did. Armstrong's interception was a mistake. It was a bad football play. Mm-hmm. It was a football error.
Trying for too much when you don't need to.
And no one, I think, is ever going to fault. Everyone's upset if their team loses, but you're not going to fault a team for trying to win and just not being able to do it, but doing their best.
Especially
I know people
in Tommy's case.
Well, you got to win. If you're any sort of reasonable human being, knowing that your team did the best they could is gonna be enough. Are you gonna be always happy with the record? No, but you're not gonna be upset at the team. Here's the difference between Armstrong's interception and Alex Lewis. His was totally avoidable. It was not a football mistake. It was a character mistake. And in that same article, they did a story, the World Herald in Omaha did a story on him this summer, and this is a quote from Alex Lewis, quote, "The clock of life is always ticking, and when you go through adversity, it reveals your character, who you are as a human being." That's what Alex Lewis said. And if he actually believes that, then his character got exposed as pretty ugly on that last play because he had the choice. That play was over. The damage had been done. And he chose to smack that Miami player out of bounds. And, I mean, that's inexcusable, no matter who it was. And it's not just because it's Alex Lewis. If that had been Tommy Armstrong himself, if that had been any other lineman, if it had been any other player, I'd say the same exact thing. Sorry, Alex Lewis, but, I mean, that's just...
But see, you won't see that from a Dylan Utter or a Ryan Reeves.
Maybe,
or any of those guys.
I don't know Alex Lewis. I don't pretend to know him. Maybe he's got stuff going on, off the field that he needs some help with. I know there was the fight in Colorado where he spent some time in jail and stuff, whatever. I'm not going to sit here and blast a guy I don't know. But, if it's true that adversity reveals your character in the greatest moment of adversity that team faced last night, he totally drop the ball.
And you have to be smart. You have to always be smart every single play, every single second.
Yeah. And it's hard. Yes,
exactly,
of course it's hard. And could many of the people criticizing him do it? Probably not. But at the same time, again, that's why if it was anyone else, I'd be saying the same thing. It's nothing personal for Alex Lewis, but he's the guy who did it. And he's the one who deserves the criticism for that aspect of it. If the hands to the face, I don't even care about that. That's a football thing. This was a character thing. And, for a guy who says that about his character, and you kind of saying one thing and doing another.
He's a selected captain of the team. That's why I keep going back to. You are placed into higher standards.
Yeah.
Not by the state of Nebraska, by your
team.
coaches, because it's the coaches. It is Mike Riley who picks the captains, unless it's another way I don't know, Devin.
I think
but
the team votes on it.
The team your teammates, and it comes down to Mike Riley's decision, have placed you in a category in which you are expected to be a leader, the guy that can be looked to in situations that are really difficult to come back from, like a 30-10 score.
Right.
So the fact that Alex Lewis thinks that he can just go on social media and just, again, slap all of the state of Nebraska and all Husker fans in the face and say, no, this is how it is. When you already said this, Alex Lewis, you can do all that. That's not going to, A, get rid of that play that you made, and B, get rid of what you said previously in the summer about how things are supposed to be done as a football player and as a football leader. You can't wipe that away. You can go on social media and say that stuff. That's not going to change how you are supposed to be a captain of this team and what you do on the field. It doesn't change that.
Right. And again, I don't know him, so I don't want to blast him, but based on these things, the Facebook post and that penalty, it seems to me like he's just kind of a selfish guy. Because that play is selfish. Your team comes back And that is a selfish thing because he wanted to hit that player. He wanted to take his frustrations out. Granted, the whole team's frustrated, but however many guys travel, I don't know whether it's 50 or
53, I want to say.
So 52 other guys were able to hold on to their emotions, and he didn't. And that's selfish. That Facebook post is selfish. It's not saying, hey, look, I'm sorry. I'm going to do everything I can to be a better player and to make this team better. It's, you guys are going to kiss my feet because I'm going to be so good.
That's
selfish.
No. And you want to see an
Focus
example.
on yourself and making your team better and let the team back up your words.
And if you want to see an example of how you handle your frustration, you look at Tommy Armstrong and what he did after that interception. Did he go and bump some Miami player or shove him? No, he just slapped the ground with his hands because he knew he made a mistake because he tried to do too much on that play and he knows he shouldn't have. And he has to live with that now. And he isn't good. He's not going to go. Tommy Armstrong didn't go on social media and blast Husker fans for, you guys were criticizing me because I threw the interception. No, Tommy Armstrong just going to keep on going just in a straight line. He's going to go into the next game and he's going to work even harder than he did against Miami to lead Nebraska to a win.
That's,
Go ahead, Devin.
I was thinking of that too. Tim Tebow, your boy, came out and made that speech. I don't remember after what game it was.
I think it was Ole Miss.
And he said he was going to play harder than ever. Tommy's going to do exactly that.
Yeah. Right. He doesn't need to come out and say that.
Everyone knows.
He doesn't care. He doesn't
understood that he's going to come out. He's going to play as hard as he possibly can. Tommy's only got a little over a year and a half left at Nebraska if he so chooses to play that year and a half. And if he wants Nebraska to get the way he does, he has to keep fighting. And he's going to keep fighting. This week or those last couple of days, Tommy, I thought his mindset was good. He's ready for this game. He's never been better, but there's factors that go into this football game that can change it. It's not just Tommy. Everyone's got to have that will to fight on and keep on fighting through all that adversity. Hold back your frustrations and be able to play Nebraska football, classy Nebraska football. You don't stoop to the level of Miami was relatively good this year, but last year when they stooped to the level of fighting all the time, you don't want to stoop to that level. That's not Nebraska football.
No,
you want to get there. You want to play hard. You want to smack them in the mouth, help them get back up, and then you go hit them again.
Right.
You just keep doing that back and forth, but it's respectful, and that's something that Alex didn't have. Alex is a good guy. I like him. His mind is in the right place, but just one episode can change an entire state's thought about you. And now that you post that,
it doesn't help the cause.
It doesn't help the cause.
Facebook post really does
you
not
look
help.
at two examples, and I know we got to wrap this up here, but I just want to say you look at two examples of how to be a captain and how not to be a captain. Tommy Armstrong, Alex Lewis. National television saw how a good captain responds in Tommy Armstrong. National television also showed how a bad captain responds in Alex Lewis. And then social media added to that for Alex Lewis, and he took advantage of that and further damaged how he is viewed as a captain. Meanwhile, Tommy Armstrong, I haven't seen anything he posted on Twitter. I know he's got a Twitter. I haven't seen anything posted. No. It certainly hasn't showed up. I know it would, but I know he is certainly, at least today, on the off day, thinking about that last play.
And you want these guys to think about it. You just don't want to hear them say anything about it. Because if you're complaining about it or making grand statements on social media or in press conferences about it, you're just taking the easy way out. What, again, like Devin's saying, what the really great players do is they just actually do something about it. They don't tell you they're doing anything about it, but in their daily, in each practice, they're practicing harder. They're, studying harder for their next opponent. And then you see how upset they were about it because they take it out on the next team that they play.
And if they do say something, they act upon those words, like Tim Tebow, for example. Tommy Armstrong, probably, like I said, don't think he said anything. Doesn't matter, because we all know after seeing that game yesterday, he's going to act upon what he has to get done.
Tebow's speech started with, "I'm sorry, I'm so extremely sorry that we did this, that we lost for you guys." Because, again, like Devin said as well, Alex Lewis, his heart, probably I'd say his heart's in the right place. His mind obviously is not,
Correct.
at least when it comes to the football field. But, again, he wants to do good. He wants these fans to like and appreciate him and the effort he's putting out there each week for them. But it's hard when you do stuff like this. So, anyway, we'll
probably need to wrap this up. Nebraska plays Southern Miss this Saturday, 11 a.m. Brent Bonfleur and the KRNU sports staff will have the Husker Countdown pregame show at 9:50 a.m. Central Time. Nice early rising at, I'd say, like 4 a.m., 5 a.m., Brent? Going to be getting up at around that time?
It's going to be early.
Oh, yeah. I know that feeling. Had that one too many times last year and the year before.
Or a late night the night before.
Well, that's true. But anyways, you can hear Brent Bonfleur leading the Husker Countdown crew on KR at 90.3 KRNU for Saturday. Devin, as always, a pleasure, buddy.
Thank you.
Let's certainly hope that Nebraska can get it done against Southern Miss team that put up 52, 53, somewhere around there in their win this past weekend. So they're coming in a little bit fired up.
Let's put it this way. I feel bad for Southern Miss. There's going to be so much passion on the field.
They're going to run into a buzzsaw.
I think they are.
It certainly feels like they're going to run into a buzzsaw.
But you can't overlook them. I keep saying that.
No, you're right. You're right.
But I just feel bad.
Nebraska's going to be looking to get to 2-2 this weekend, and we'll certainly hope that that happens. Various media outlets is where you can find the Huskers and the Golden Eagles of Southern Miss this Saturday, 11 a.m. And for now, for Brent Bonfleur, Devin Cleach, I'm Ryan Swanigan. Another good edition of the Route Husker podcast recap here. And we'll talk to you again next week, hopefully recapping a win for Nebraska against Southern Miss.
Almost two podcasts in one today.
Yeah, I know. It's a rather long one, but a lot to discuss. Hope you enjoy. Discuss. Hope you enjoy. Discuss. Hope you enjoy. Discuss. Hope you enjoy.